Over the last 15 years, I have been applying my university degree and over 10 years of industry experience to helping others build their dream wardrobe that is designed by them, made by them, and worn by them. But I've also been harboring a secret. I've not been applying it to my own wardrobe. And in today's video, that is about to change. So I'm excited to take you on the journey of this new Dream Wardrobe Diaries series. I'll be uploading these videos sporadically as and when, but hopefully this will keep me accountable. And so my first project today is diving in to the final fitting of this bustier design that I'm wearing. Now, inside the DPL Atelier, my members and I walk through a create, cut, contour, construct framework cycle where we focus on a different garment style every 4 months, design it, draft it to our measurements, and bring it to life. I got so far with this, and then I stopped, moving on to the next project. We've literally all been there. So in today's video, I'm taking you on the journey as we dive into the final fitting of this garment. I'll be removing the boning, taking in the side seams for a closer fit, and adding a concealed center front zip to make it look just right, hopefully. It's all about those final touches that make a difference. So let's get started. So this is where we are currently at. I'm going to be removing the boning first, but what happens when I wear it is there is gapping down the center front. Now, I've only got an elastic loop with a covered button fastening, so this is bound to happen. When I put it on and move, we're bound to have that stretch and movement. What I could have done to resolve that is sewn up a piece of facing. I could have stitched that facing to the wrong side so that it overlapped here, so that when you wore it from the front, you wouldn't be able to see the skin underneath. That could have been an option, and to be honest, if I had enough fabric, that probably would have been the option I went for, but I don't. And the only fabric that I've been able to find that is a match requires a £55 delivery charge from Europe. So that's an out. I don't love it that much to spend that kind of money. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to butt that together with a concealed zip, and then I'll keep the buttons as a decorative element to still get that aesthetic and that look. That is going to be the last step that I do. The first step that I do is actually going to be to remove the boning. Now, it's worth noting that I did toile this when I was drafting the pattern to my measurements. I toiled it up, but I toiled it up in a lightweight calico. Now that is a woven, it has the same weight as this fabric here, but this is a double gauze muslin, so it's slightly different, and just through the nature of construction and using a different textile that doesn't 100% match the calico I toiled in, some warping has occurred. Inserting the boning, at the time we were filming a boning tutorial inside the DPL Atelier, that's why this has boning in it, but because this design comes with these shoulder straps, because I'm a proud member of the IBTC, and because there's not really any need for the additional structural support of the boning in these channels here, I am going to remove it. Adding the boning to the side seam, as you can see, has actually made it kick out ever so slightly. It's worth saying these are very minor fitting amendments that I'm going to implement, but they will make all the difference to having a tailored wardrobe that is sewn to a high standard. I'm ultimately looking to make small tweaks to yield big results. And then once I have taken the boning out, I'll try it on again. I'll see if I need to take any out from the side seam. This is double layered, so that will involve me unpicking and making sure everything is enclosed on the inside, so it's as beautiful on the inside as it is on the out. That's a core philosophy that I teach here in the Digital Pattern Library universe. We are making high-end clothes designed to last. And then once that's done, I can finally try that on again and determine what I'm going to do with my center front placement. Step one, let's remove this boning and see how we get on. So after taking the boning out, this already feels so much more softer and more comfortable to wear. So from like a wearer ergonomic point of view, really happy with this initial change. Now I just want to assess this little bit of excess at my armpit. So I'll be pinching that in Bearing in mind that when I come to add a center front zip, this will also be bringing this in at the front as well. So it would do me well to pin this together, because if you pull in too much at the side, what's going to happen, and I need to be very careful not to turn this into an unsuitable online video, but if you start pulling and pulling and pulling, you're actually going to alter too much of the proportions around your cup size as well. So I'm only going to take in, if we get that little tie out the way, I'm only going to take in about 2 centimeters from my armpit, I think, 1 centimeter each side from the front and the back, just where it's stretched here. And I'm going to taper that in and true that into the bottom. I'm quite happy with the fit around the bottom. I don't want it to be too tight. Fits me quite nicely. But yeah, all in all, even something as simple as taking that bone in has really made a nice, comfortable difference to the end goal as the wearer. And actually, by pinning this, it's fixed a lot of the gaping along my bust as well. But yeah, a little bit of pinning, and I'm actually really happy with how this is looking. So now I just need to unpin this. Obviously, I've done a very crude attempt at butting the center front together, which I'll be replicating with a center front zip. But yeah, I think we're getting there. I'm a lot comfier in this. And just to reiterate, you'll notice I am doing these amendments one step at a time. If I threw everything in the kitchen sink at this, then you won't actually know, if you go to try it on and there's still fittings to be done, what's made it worse, what's made it better. So anytime you're doing fitting amendments, I always do advise trying to just do it incrementally. It's very beneficial on this. It's essential on something like a pair of trousers. Don't know why I was talking to you with my head cut off the screen. So let's do this then. Be very patient with the unpicking. This is a process. If you can fall in love with the process, you'll love the result even more. So now I've taken this off again and I've still got my pin in place on both sides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a measuring tape, because what I don't want to do is shift it too much in this instance. I don't want to take out more from the front than the back. I don't want to take out more from the back than the front in this instance. Sometimes that is appropriate. If your side seams are swinging and the balance is off, then you might need to take out more from one than the other. But this will be a relatively simple amendment. So I'm going to take my measuring tape. That is about 1.5 centimeters. I'm just going to cross-reference that to the other side. Yeah, 1.5 centimeters on both sides. And so I know that that is the width I want to take out. You can make a note of that, 1.5 centimeters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to measure down to where I want to taper it in. Now, I don't want to just cut out and taper down to the bottom. As I was pinning it, I think tapering down to about 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimeters would have worked for me in this instance. And so I'm going to make a note of that as well. And then this stops me doing eyeballing it or guesswork when I come to unpin. I can then remove my pin from both sides and take care unpicking my seams. Now, I have never professed to have 20/20 vision, but good God, unpicking white thread from double gauze is not the funnest job in the world. And so I've sewn both side seams on the lining and the external garment. When I push this back through, and I'm about to close reclose the top edge, as you can see here, the seams still align. So that's just showing that we've taken an equal amount out on both sides. If they were off, if your seams were like off by quite a bit, then you've taken out an unequal amount. So you want to make sure that when you fold it back together, when we come to reclose this, your lining and your external seam still aligns. So I can then, once I'm happy with it, flip this inside out. There's no denying it. When you're doing fitting amendments on final garments, it can get fiddly, especially with a lining or, corners or anything like that. Because it's the final garment, you've already kind of constructed it all together. Or even if you're doing an amendment on a shop bought garment, then obviously as we come to construct garments, we do so in a particular order. We are now trying to kind of get into the nitty gritty of it and all the internal construction, which can just get a little bit fiddly. But if you take your time with it, try not to always rip or pull fabric or take shortcuts, which are oh so tempting. Let me tell you, we've all been there. Then it really will give you the best results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just match those seams up. They've matched up by eye. I'm now going to match them up with a pin. and I can just reclose that top edge, lining up to my stitch line and sealing it towards the top here. Making sure at all points that my work is flat. I don't want to catch anything under the sewing machine, creating any tucks or folds that aren't intentional. I can just snip away my threads, take out the pin, and when I push this through, that should be neatly closed. And repeat that on the other side. Top tip for aligning seams is to put your pin through the stitch line, and you can compare that to the other side and make sure that it is gone through the stitch line. This will help you with really accurate alignment. That's better. And so let's do a fit check. I'm really happy. There is no gapping at all at the underarm by there or this side. I might have to give that a good press and just get rid of any tail ends if they're there. But I'm really happy with this. Now we're just going to fix this window to the soul. So this is the kind of amendment, and let's have a little bit of real talk right here. This is the kind of fitting amendment that leads to these kind of garments being on my unfinished project pile for eternity. Removing the boning, taking in a centimetre here and there, they're simply easy. Whereas when I now have to take off the buttons, I need to unpick the centre front seam, and I need to insert a concealed zip. Oh, this is when the overwhelm kicks in and you kind of put it on the shelf. But because I have become accountable with you guys, my friends, we're going to do it. We are going to finish this bustier and we're going to fit it to my body. So the last step, and notice, again, I've tried it on at every step of the way just to check how we're getting on, how she's looking. The last step is to close this up with a concealed zip, but I'm going to retain the covered button feature as a little design detail just for this cottagecore bustier-esque aesthetic. So let's do it, okay? I might need a cup of coffee, so I'll be back in 2. Listen, I'm too sustainable to go to a haberdashery and find a correct sized zip to suit my project. I also have this in my studio, which is a box full of zips. These are from job lots on eBay. Some of them are secondhand. I try and repurpose them into my toiles. Some of them are from my good friends over at YKK who have previously sponsored 3-day design challenges and just sent some of the most incredible zips. Alas, for my relatively basic bustier, I'm going to have to work with this. Don't hate me, it's cream, but it is concealed. So I'm hoping with a little bit of magic, patience, and accuracy when I'm sewing, it's just the zipper pull that's probably going to annoy you. I'm ready for it in the comments. I'm ready for you to be angered at my choice of zip. It's also too long currently for the bustier, so I'm going to have to amend that. This is probably why these fitting amendments take me forever and a day, because I don't make them easy for myself. But it's all a learning curve, and I promise to take you on the journey. So first things first, I need to be very careful unpicking my centre front. Okay, without a shadow of a doubt, that was 0 out of 10 fun. Oish, but we did it, and you held my hand through it, so a big thank you for keeping me accountable, because now it's not so bad when the amendments just involve sewing. But yeah, that was tough. Too many channels for boning that wasn't even necessary, lest we not forget. Took that out at the beginning. Lots of stitching and double gauze just to unpick is a delicate fabric. So really cursing previous Alex, but currently quite proud of myself that I've seen this through. So I've unpicked the center front panels. I'm now going to press them open. And to be honest, because I've just gone through this entire faff, I'm actually going to go one step further and interface my seam allowance just to give it that extra bit of structure for the zip. So I'm going to give this a good press open my seam allowance. Again, I've got to be very careful with this because I have trimmed away the corners. I've clipped into the seam allowance when I first constructed it. So it's a challenging job. I just need to take my time. But we've come this far, so why not reinforce it and do it the right way and add a little bit of lightweight interfacing. It doesn't need to be anything too heavy. This is a lightweight fabric after all, and so if I interface it with something that doesn't quite match, it's just going to look a bit strange and a bit too structured. I'm going to eyeball this, and I'm just going to cut a centimetre strip or so of interfacing and press that on with a dry hot iron. So I'm going to turn the setting down on my iron for that one. I feel very Blue Peter all of a sudden with you over there. So I've just cut 2 strips of lightweight interfacing, and I'm just going to put them along the edge of each of my center fronts, just so that when I insert my zip and the zipper tape, given this is such a lightweight fabric, it's just going to reinforce that area ever so slightly more. It's also going to help in terms of puckering or wrinkling or anything like that. So I'm going to take the glue side, which is this side here. If I take that up to the light, it's got that quite slightly shiny side. And I'm going to lay that down over my seam here. I can place that down, and I'm going to, with a dry hot iron, press that on. And this is just going to reinforce my seam accordingly. I'm going to knock the temperature back up ever so slightly on my iron. I'm going to bring my zip into the picture. This is way too long, so we're going to adjust the length shortly, but I'm actually going to unzip this, and I'm going to push the zipper teeth in with the iron just so that they roll in. This is going to help me, even though I'm going to use a concealed zipper foot, this is going to help me get my stitches right in the edge. Taking care, because these are plastic zipper teeth, so I don't want this on the top setting on my iron. I don't want to damage the zipper teeth or melt the zipper teeth, but I do want to just roll them in. So to insert my zip, I'm going to have it facing right side to me, so as it would if the garment was being worn. And I'm going to flip it so that the right side of the tape is to the right side of my garment. And I will place that plastic stopper just under the first elastic loop on my center front, and I'm going to pop a pin in to place that. Now I'm going to run the length of this zip down to the bottom. I'm not going to stretch my garment to fit it. I'm just going to try and run it as organically as possible to the base of my garment, to the hem. I'm going to pop a pin in there as well. It's worth noting that I am working with the exterior fabric only. I've moved the lining up and away out of my working area. And then to finish it off, I'm going to pop a pin in the middle. I'm doing these lengthways because I plan on zipping up. So zip that up like so. Now what I'm going to do with a pencil is I'm going to mark the hemline here at the bottom with the zip closed. I'm going to mark where that hemline is, just almost as a notch on my zipper. So when I come to unzip this, and now what I can do, if I repeat the process and move my lining out of the way, is I can flip this zipper tape over and I can align that notch to the hemline on this bodice. I'm going to secure that in with a pin, and I'm going to pull this up to the top and pin that in place. And I'm going to push this under. Just notice that I untwist my work by doing that. I'm going to push that under. So if you feel like you're getting a bit confused or discombobulated, have a go at just pushing that under, and it might flatten out your zipper teeth. I can zip this up, and although that's very crudely pinned in place, it helps me check the alignment. And so repeat that until you're happy, and then once you're happy with that, baste it at the sewing machine. If at any point that doesn't align, then unpick your basting stitches. The reinforcement of the interfacing on that seam allowance is going to help you there. This is a tricky fabric, so I'm glad I did that. But I'm just going to check and check again before changing over my foot to a concealed zipper foot. I can unzip, flatten out my work, and secure that in place by rolling my zipper teeth open, placing the foot on top. We now have a concealed zip. to the center front. So I'm going to give that a good press at the iron. I'm going to trim away my excess of my zip. I'm going to swap over my needle, and I'm actually just going to bar tack over the bottom of this to secure that closed. So after giving that a press at the iron, that has a nice invisible finish. So now what I want to do is sandwich that between my lining. So I'm going to unzip my zip, and I'm going to flip my lining back over to sandwich that between the seams. And I can now sew all the way down and sandwich that in. This zipper foot here, which isn't an enclosed zipper foot or an invisible zipper foot, sorry, but as you can see, the narrow foot just gets really close to the zip, and that's kind of what I want for the lining. And what I may want to do if it gets fiddly is sew halfway, move the zipper part up and out of the way, and then continue sewing that line of stitches. We now have an enclosed zipper. So I'm going to repeat that on the next side. And there's light at the end of the tunnel, my friend. So our zip is inserted. This is the right side. This is the wrong side. So it's sandwiched between the lining. I've cut away all the bulk in the corners by here, and I've just pressed up my hem at the machine. If I was going to do this professionally, properly, then I would probably hand sew my hem closed. But because I was clearly in a rush when I first made this garment, and there are already perforated stitch holes from when I just did it by machine, I'm going to just go over those and call it a day. I'm so proud of myself that I have stuck through this and gotten through. So it would be worthwhile equipping yourself with something just to ensure that you can gently poke into the corners and make sure that everything before we seal it closed is a nice crisp shape. I'm just going to do that on both corners. I'll give this a good press at the iron when I'm done, and then I will just hand sew my buttons back on, and we'll check the fit. And so I hope that you enjoyed this different style of video from me today. And if you did, why not like and subscribe? It'll give me a good indication that this is your vibe, and I will continue to deliver more Dream Wardrobe Diaries for you to follow along with the journey and hopefully get inspired for your own. So for now, let me know in the comments, what are you adding to your wardrobe next? Stay safe, keep creative, and I will catch you on the flip side.